Hello, I'm Dr. Amy Mellon, Interim Dean for the Stevens College of Business at the University of Montevallo. I want to welcome you to our Supply Chain and Shelby County panel discussion, co-sponsored with the Shelby County Chamber. We have an impressive group with us today who understand the intricacies of the supply chain process and can speak about its effects on both a global and local scale. I don't want to take away time from the main event, so I'll now turn it over to our moderator, Alec Etheridge.
Well, thank you, Amy. We do have a great panel today, and we're going to get straight to them here in just a second, obviously talking about a pretty hot topic right now with the supply chain and shortages there and how that impacts Shelby County locally, specifically in the Birmingham area. But I want to give everybody a chance to introduce themselves, and we're going to start and we've got four great panelists here with us today. We'll start with Dr. Mechitov at the University of Montevallo. If you want to introduce yourself first.
We'll be glad to do that. I'm a professor in College of Business. I got all my education, including PhD in Russian Academy of Sciences. 25 years ago, I decided to move to this country. I'm very happy that I did that. And the last 20 is my 21st year in University of Montevallo.
All righty. Thank you, Dr. Mechitov. And we've also got Caleb Kennedy with us, the general manager of Cintas, and we will have him introduce himself now.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Caleb Kennedy, a graduate of the University of Montevallo. Work with Cintas Corporation in our Birmingham location, run sales and operations. Been here 16 years. Spent a little bit of time in supply chain, and currently, as I said earlier, reside here in Birmingham, Alabama, where I run our plant of about 150 people or so. Thanks for having me.
All right. And next up, we've got Jeffrey Purvis, Vice President of Operations at AC Legg.
Hello, everyone. Once again, Jeffrey Purvis. I'm a 2002 and a 2016 graduate from the University of Montevallo, just like Caleb. Go Falcons. We do business making spices and the seasonings, and those spices that we currently get come from all over the world. So this has definitely had an impact on us the last 20 months. Looking forward to discuss.
All right. And last but not least, Dwight Sandlin, Chief Executive Officer of Signature Homes. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Or not. Glad to be here, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dwight Sandlin. I am, as he said, work with Signature Homes. We are a local home building company. We build in Birmingham and in Nashville, and we've been in business for about 23 years. So we're happy to be on the panel. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, thank each of y'all for being here and being a part of this panel today. Obviously, like I said at the top, we've got an important topic to talk about, and all of you kind of deal with it in different ways as well. But the supply chain shortage and the delays that we're experiencing there has obviously been a hot topic and an important matter, especially as we get closer to the holidays, as we're coming out of COVID. There's a lot of different things that we're dealing with there. So we're just going to kind of talk about a lot of that. I'm going to start with Dr. Mechitov and simply ask you, from your research and experience regarding economic demand and the supply chain movement, why do you believe that the supply chain issues have continued or possibly worsened over the past year?
I will try to outline the main reasons as they are, and I hope very much that other panelists will contribute to this. First of all, no questions, it's very much related to current pandemic. We have one of the deepest recessions since the World War II right now because of pandemic, first of all. According to current estimates, it cost the world global economy about $20–30 trillion. And likely this estimate will only continue to grow. At some point, almost 40% of small businesses were temporarily closed in this country. We all know main reasons why COVID affected supply chain. It's about lockdowns. We had lockdowns pretty much in all countries. I remember how I was surprised a year and a half ago when first time I found out that Chinese managed to close 9 million people city, fully closed it. Wuhan was absolutely closed. And it's one of the main industrial center in China. So lockdowns was one reason, and we had these lockdowns pretty much all over the world. Some countries really like primarily in Asia, China, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, they pretty much tried to eliminate virus entirely. We in this country never tried to do that, but still there was some local lockdowns at enterprise levels, at some smaller regions, and so on. We also know that COVID somehow, and we likely will discuss it as a separate issue, affected quite a lot size of labor force. And it's a very interesting topic, which is much less obvious why it happens and why it happens to this degree, but we know that it happens. Now, speaking about COVID as the main reason, we realize it's not the only one. And there are several others which secondary, but not less important. I want to mention them in some order, not in the order of kind of importance, of course. One of them is climate change. When we had hurricanes, our oil and gas supply chains is interrupted, which affects pretty much everything. I can remind you that pretty much the whole Asia, including China, South Korea, Japan, Vietnam, very much affected by hurricanes in the season of hurricanes. And hurricanes are just one of kind of manifestation of climate change. So there are many others as well, including fires, including droughts, and so on. Floods, and so on. Now, we had this global summit about how to minimize carbon emissions, and it's a huge new type of policies which once again affects many businesses, which bring a lot of uncertainty for many type of businesses, additional expenses. So it also kind of plays an important role. Now, in addition to COVID and climate change, the third important reason to my mind is just political uncertainty, political instability, pretty much all over the world. In the last 2-3 years, we witnessed rather many what we call trade wars. We had trade disputes, conflicts with China, with Europe, with the European Union, inside NAFTA, with Canada. We imposed embargoes on Iran, and so on. So it's another source of uncertainty, of interruptions in kind of regular supply chain, in regular type of businesses. Brexit, another political reason which also affected primarily Europe, but these days there is no isolated region. So if it's affected many countries in Europe, it affects all other world as well. One more factor, which to my mind also important, is changing. Because of that, we witness a lot of changes in macroeconomic policies. We know that we experience comparatively high inflation, which also affects business operations, business plans, business activities. In our country, and pretty much in all countries much affected by COVID, they introduced different stimulus packages. which also made a lot of changes in economic activities. We are changing taxes regularly with each new administration in this country. We are discussing a potential carbon tax, which also may change business equilibriums quite a lot. One of the reasons which really has kind of serious effect on current supply chain, which led to many disruptions and to many kind of problems in supply chain, is big fluctuations in demand. When COVID started, we had a big drop in demand for services. That led later to substantially increased demand for products. And we know from supply chain theory that when we have big change in final demand and consumer demand, there is so-called famous bullwhip effect. It leads to even larger fluctuations along the supply chain, because all agents of supply chain kind of react to this change in consumer demand, and their changes, their reply usually is even higher than is necessary. And finally, just to kind of combine all these notions together, just personally, sometimes I have an impression that whether this is true or not, we live in kind of transition time. There are so many changes around, from technological changes to political changes to economic changes to climate changes, that I have an impression that we kind of live in a little bit transitional time, and that's why there are so many interruptions in different areas of life. So that's my kind of main factors I try to underline. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Mechitov. That was a very good in-depth answer that gives us a lot of insight that a lot of people might not know about. And I think another important issue, a lot of first-time home buyers, a lot of people that have been on the market for homes over the last year specifically, with the housing market in good shape. And we've seen some delays in construction and stuff to do with home building as well. So we'll bring in Mr. Sandlin here, and just want to ask you the impact, the effect that you've kind of felt and seen in the home building process.
Yes, sir. The reality is I've been exposed to this business for about 40 years, and I've never seen anything this disruptive in 40 years. It came from the surge the good doctor was talking about in March of when COVID first hit. Just about everybody in the home building business recoiled quickly and started laying off people, and the manufacturers started reducing manufacturing and started reducing the productivity of the things supplying the home building side. No one had any concept that it was going to rebound so quickly. No one knew that. But the impact is tremendous on a national basis. This is not all supply chain related, but in great part there it is. But on a national basis, in March of this year, there was an annualized housing starts of 1.725 million homes. And as of August, it was 1.55 million homes, which means that we reduced housing starts by 10% in just 5 months. The single family side of that 155 is 1,080,000, and the apartments are 465,000. The other thing besides just the housing starts declining, by and large, most every company that I'm aware of has lost about 10% of the closings this year. So with an average sales price of 408 nationally for new homes, The impact that's occurred is right at $43 billion of deferred income this year. That's true on a national basis. In our own company, we do about $300 million of revenue a year, and we will have deferred revenue of $28 million this year. Same reason. If we had the supply chain issues not being in play, we would be up some $30 million this year. On the apartment side, same animal there. The demand for apartments is far outstripped the supply that's out there. So in the first 6 months, January through June, according to CNBC, there's been which is in kind with most everybody else, there's been an 11.4% increase in apartment rents. So big deal. And that's compared to in that same period of time, from 2017 to 2019 of 3.3. So it's almost 300% higher in a 6-month basis. So had a huge impact. On a local basis, same animal. Through July of 2020, there was this is just MSA. There was 1,494 permits. And this year there's 1,350 permits, which is down about 10%. That's pretty significant in that pricing of housing is dependent on new housing coming in, particularly in Birmingham, because we've had, since COVID, we have had a surge in growth. We have gained, according to Bureau of Labor Statistics, we've had a 28,000 gain in the from August to August versus only 1,300. When that would be 2,200 houses on an annualized basis. So it's because we don't have enough new homes being built. It is keeping the prices up of houses precipitously, and I'm not telling anyone anything they don't know about that. On a Signature Homes basis, we daily have new issues come to us each day. There's another issue coming into the front that we have to deal with, and the problem is it's illogical. It's completely illogical in that one day we're missing window. No, we've been missing windows all along. Other days we miss garage doors, other days we miss appliances. So there's no continuum in which you can look at and try to predict what's happening. And because most of our business, or all of our business, is pre-sold, it's very frustrating to our customers because we may start one house next door to the other house, and because one house gets windows and we don't know why, we order them at the same time. One house gets windows, another house does not. There could be a 6 to 8 week difference between those two houses that start at the same time. So not only is it economic impact, it is an emotional impact on the housing market completely, because it's really hard to talk to our customers and say, yeah, I know the house next door was done a month and a half ago, yours is still not complete. It's very emotional. So this has been it's been a very tough year on the supply. Again, lots of reasons, COVID, a lot of other reasons, but bottom line for true production of housing, been a tough year.
Just real quick before we move on to our other two panelists, I want a quick follow-up question for you. How has it been handling some of those customers? I think that's been a big part for a lot of us, is handling that change in our customer base when we're not able to give them what they need in their set time frame, I guess.
Is exactly as you think it would be. Exactly as you think. That from an emotional standpoint, I'm glad to see at least the supply chain issues have been very public, because we've been dealing with them for some time now. And we would have customers say, you just don't care about my house, because if you did, you would have it finished sooner. So the frustration level of customers, particularly today, because the housing market is so strong that, and people are afraid to have two house payments. So they sell their house and move in with in-laws, or move into going from a 3,000 square foot house to a 1,300 foot apartment. Our customers are antsy about that, and there really isn't anything we can tell them. I mean, that's the frustrating part, is there isn't any answer that we can give them, and the question is always, well, when will it come in? And our answer is, we don't know. And that's not what you want to tell your customer, but that's what we're doing.
Yeah, I know that's something that a lot of people are seeing and dealing with right now too. But that'll take us to Mr. Purvis. Obviously, you are bringing in the spices from all around. I know a lot of people are familiar with AC Legg and the spices there that y'all bring in from around the world. So take me through the impact that y'all felt in the supply chain shortage.
Well, first off, we get stuff from 5 different continents, and we roughly have about 250 raw materials to come in from those 5 continents. And we are actually a stopgap in the supply chain. When I talk to our salesmen, our customers, by the nature of what we do here and how quick we turn it around, we have to keep a couple months of supply. So we don't rely on just-in-time inventory, except for a handful of domestic items. We were tipped off to what was going on with COVID probably early January, and by February we were already making plans because of what was happening, what was coming out of Asia, what was getting delayed. We've been very fortunate during this process that from getting the stuff here, we've been able to do it. We contract with a lot of different people, and we have some very long-term relationships, and we hedged our bets, and we stocked up on ingredients. And from our standpoint, we think it will still get worse before it gets better. Like Dwight was saying, the best thing that happened is that some of this went public, or has gotten a little bit more public, where people realize, because you can go to your local grocery store now and see stuff not on the shelf. That's either where someone has made a decision to focus on their mainline business, or B, they just can't get anything. Favorite example of that is Gatorade. Go look, you won't find all the bizarre flavors of Gatorade. They have the 5 or 6 mainstays, but other than that, if you walk in through a Publix right now, you're not going to see Gatorade like you used to. There's going to be a lot of empty shelf space. Same thing with us from a domestic standpoint. The bottle business, we don't do a ton of it, but that's where a lot of y'all would know us and actually see our name on something here locally, because we don't really push that out. But there was a time where from April last year to really January this year, we went from a 4-week lead time on getting bottles to 36 weeks, just like snap of a finger. So for the most part, we've done a decent job of managing it, but that's just because of the nature of how we do things here, and trying to protect ourselves and protect our customers. For the most part, our food is still domestically sourced in this country, so you might have had some bland food, but people weren't going to starve. But I think the statistic is 83 to 85% of the food in this country is made in this country. It's not coming in from overseas. So that was the good thing of it. The bad thing is hey, if you like something with pepper comes from Malaysia and some from Brazil, and it could get stuck on a container. We still have stuff that's still stuck on containers and starting to run behind, but we've just had enough safety stock to survive it, and stay out in front of it and better plan. I wish I could say that was completely my job, but I have a director of purchasing that's done a heck of a job and probably gotten some gray hair during this time with all that. Last thing to kind of throw on that, Dwight touched briefly on where some of the lumber prices went and some of the issues he was having. Products right now, you see pictures of stuff stuck in the ports. That's been going on since June, July of last year. It's just now getting to y'all in the news that this issue has gone on, along with the trucking issue that's been from a logistics side that's been going on for a lot longer than that. To give you an idea right now, we don't do a lot of the direct importing, but 2 years ago, to get a container out of India to here on a slow boat, what we call it, $1,600 to $2,000 to get that container transported. Right now, that's going somewhere between 18 and 24,000. So when Dr. Mechitov was talking about hyperinflation, you're going to see it in your food and other places. And, from where I'm sitting, it's not going to get better till sometime next year. I wish I could tell you when, but we've kind of hunkered down and hedged our bets. And unfortunately, I have some competitors that were running more just-in-time inventory that what little limited safety stock they've had, they've started running through it, and we're starting to field the calls from their customers, panicking, trying to get stuff out on the shelf. So if one of your favorite things is not out on the shelf, realize there's multiple reasons why it's not there.
Yeah, thank you. That was fascinating to listen to and kind of hear. Obviously it sounds like y'all had a pretty good plan in place for, what a lot of us didn't really know was happening or coming at the time. And it's helped y'all out a little bit at least, but I know y'all are still feeling the impact too. But we'll go to Mr. Kennedy now. And I know that working with Cintas and some of the stuff that y'all have done, it's been a busy year for y'all as well, and offering cleaning solutions that helped with the coronavirus. And so I wondered, how has y'all's business really been impacted through a lot of the COVID side, but outside of that as well, and some of the things y'all have been trying to do?
Yeah, I think it's interesting during times like this. I was around for the Great Recession, and now this COVID. I mean, this is going to be a period, and I tell my kids that we're going to be studying, in history books for years to come. We're truly in unprecedented times, and out of that, I always believe, comes innovation. I think, companies have to be willing to be nimble and flexible to change maybe the their old norms back to, to new things. And for us, our core business is uniform rental. So when you look at our business as a company, we do a little over $7 billion a year in revenue. A large majority of that comes from uniform rental, where we own the uniforms. We rent them to companies, light industrial, scrubs to hospitals. Think about UPS and FedEx. Those companies, they don't own those uniforms. A company like mine own them. We rent them. But another side of our house are facility service products, carpeted mats, towels, soap, paper towels, cleaning chemicals. And so for us, when COVID hit, literally overnight, probably 20% of our business was down in restaurants. So, restaurants closed overnight. And as a company, for the timing of it, that March of that year, that was our Q4. So here we are, we're having an awesome year as a Fortune 500 company, going to report it at the end of the year, and then that hits in Q4. And we started to go into pivot mode in terms of what's going to be our response. I got a call here, I guess April of that year when it hit, from the Birmingham airport. We own a line of cleaning chemicals that one of them has kills a strand that's in the COVID-19. So we always tell people it doesn't kill the coronavirus, but it kills a strand that's in the COVID-19. So it's more of a preventative measure. And he said, "Caleb, I need you out here, immediately." And if you all remember, the Birmingham airport was kind of like ground zero for when this thing hit. I mean, they showed news stories, and the airport was a ghost town. I mean, there's nobody in there, and which was really eerie to see. And we go out there, and he said, "I need to find a way to get this chemical down all over the airport, So, and I need it like in the next 2 hours." So we stay out there all day, and we decide we're going to put this chemical in backpack sprayers and spray it. And out of that was a new business line for our company. Previously, we used those chemicals in, think about high schools. They have those mop closets, and we have the chemical dispensing unit there. We use it for that. And here we go doing this with the Birmingham Airport. And out of that birth, I think last year as a company, we did a little over $50 million in that service. When you look at all 500 locations across the U.S. and Canada. And so, on one side, we were able to really help, and that was exciting. For a company our size, it's often hard to pivot fast, but I think Jeffrey was talking about just-in-time inventory. And for us, we have 11 distribution centers that are around the U.S. and Canada that sit on inventory to supply locations like myself in times of need. So we had a good bit of inventory sitting around, and a great advantage when this thing first hit was those that were willing or already had inventory had the advantage of first to market, and and price really didn't matter to people at that time. And so for us, we were sitting, I believe at that time, a little over $100 million in COVID related items, whether it be gloves, sanitizer, cleaning chemicals, different things like that. So while we took a 20% decrease overnight, we were able to kind of bounce back and respond. And really coming out of that, our goal was to just grow the year over year after taking such a big decrease, which we did. And now, as cases have continued to decrease, not just around the world, but here, we pivot to really what's really stopping supply chain right now are just people. We were riding around, my 8-year-old daughter asked my wife, hey, mommy, what is now hiring me? I see it on every single door, and we're sitting there. And for us, like I said, we're in hospitals, we're in light industrial, we're in every restaurant you can think about. We service AC Legg over there with Jeffrey's place. So we literally can see trends coming before most people because we touch just about every industry. And now every single place they're looking for people. And as these manufacturing facilities have reopened, as these plants are back open, the one dynamic that's missing are the most important dynamic you need to get anything out, which are people, which as you alluded to, these shipping containers just sitting on the east and west coast with nobody to unload them, and so I agree with Jeffrey. I see this getting a little bit worse before it gets better, only because now we're going through, for the first time really in my lifetime, I'd say the power is in the hand of the people. Wages are being, because of all the increased costs, Jeffrey just brought up $18,000 to get a container from India when it was $2,000. Now you're having to increase the price to your customers, but also you're having to increase wages just to secure talent. And so in every industry that I've seen, wages are going through the roof right now for frontline laborers, for just about every position you can see. So there's going to continue to be a ripple effect of this for months and years to come. And I think right now the book on labor is being rewritten, the book on supply chains being rewritten, and really as just-in-time inventory really used to be a huge advantage if you can run it the right way. Now I think fear will promote where you sit on some inventory. Now the effects of this will be remembered for many years to come, and it's going to shape the strategy for all companies, I think, moving forward.
Yeah, I think that unknown of, is there going to be a return to normalcy as far as that kind of chain command going back to what it was, or is it going to change for the future and stay that way? So it's definitely interesting. I think we're at an interesting crossroads right now. But we talked a little bit about the just-in-time part of this. I wanted to go to Dr. Mechitov and kind of get your thoughts on that as well, and how you kind of foresee the future of that method.
I think there is some understanding that the problems we're facing right now, they are likely not short-term problems. As far as you know, pretty much all forecasts say, well, it will not become better in the near future, likely maybe in the middle of the next year, maybe in 2023, and so on. And in connection with that, it looks like we really have to think about developing what some professionals call a bit more resilient model, that our supply chain organization arrangement has to become a bit more resilient. Really, for many years, the idea of just-in-time production, lean manufacturing were very kind of popular things we taught in our classes. It was everywhere in the textbooks on supply chain and operations management. And it looks like they're not kind of working right now in this transitional time. In one paper on this subject about kind of contemplations about more resilient model of supply chain, there were several proposals, what can be done. And of course, they're kind of rather primitive ideas, but nevertheless. So one of the ideas was about if you are moving forward, things about using more standardized parts and try to minimize number of parts you are using in your parts in general way. Of course, parts in different areas of industry means different things. So idea to move a bit to more standardized parts. Of course, very idea which comes to your mind immediately is just to increase inventory. Forget about just-in-time mode. Think about making your supply chain kind of more reliable. Other ideas include, you know that pretty much there was a joke that if you take out of the house everything which is made in China, then likely you will finish by empty house. So we relied on China as a world manufacturer for so long time, and taking into account not just pandemic, but also political considerations, other reasons we just mentioned, maybe we shouldn't put kind of all eggs in one basket. So that's why we can speak about practicing what is called multi-sourcing. So let's move some of the production to other countries. Some folks go even further and discuss that in addition to moving some production from China to other countries with comparatively cheap labor force like India, Vietnam, Indonesia, and so on, so-called nearshoring. And by nearshoring, we pretty much means Mexico and to some extent the whole Latin America, South America, also makes sense, taking into account increasing transportation costs. I think a lot can be done and should be done also on federal level if we speak about our country. I think the whole supply chain, the whole infrastructure should become more resilient. First of all, from reliability point of view, from the point of view not to put everything in one basket, we just because of all this supply chain disruption, found out that 40% of our input comes from LA port. I mean, it's a huge number. It definitely has to be a bit more distributed, especially in case of emergency. We should be able to use our other channels of transportation, other ports, and so on. The whole infrastructure should become more resilient and has some reserves. That's why current discussions about investing into infrastructure, which, as we know, have bipartisan support in Congress, becomes even more important. Improving railroads, improving pipelines, increasing port capacities, and so on. I was surprised to find out that, well, according to the current rules, according to the previous rules, for example, our ports were not allowed to work 24 hours a day. It was necessary to have some interference on federal level just to increase the hours of kind of work in ports, which is very obvious these days. In general, I just recently I was very much interested to study so-called successful countries, and as far as successful countries are concerned, I pretty much thought about Asian tigers, South Korea, Singapore, Scandinavian countries in Europe, which always considered to be a good example of economic success story, and found out that in all these countries, both in Asia and in Europe, federal state plays a more important role, more proactive role. And especially as far as infrastructure is concerned, as we know, individual businesses are not able to do that, to substitute state big investments. So I think it's very much overdue just to look a little bit from new perspective on this issue. That's kind of my main ideas. I will be glad to share with you. Maybe you contribute something else to that.
Thank you, Dr. Mechitov. I kind of wanted to jump in and talk about the advantages, disadvantages of the global supply chain. I think we've talked a little bit about it, but I wanted to get Mr. Sandlin and Mr. Purvis, both of your perspectives on this. We'll start with Mr. Sandlin, but as far as global supply chains go, is there a competitive advantage there? Is that something that if there is or isn't, is it going to be permanent? How have you kind of seen the competitive side of it shift over the last year or two?
First, let me tell you, Caleb said something about living, or Jeffrey, I think maybe said something about living through the great housing recession. Guys, this is a piece of cake if you're in the real estate business. The business dropped 70% during that time. So yeah, this is a pain in the butt problem, but this too shall pass. Something else that I thought was really interesting is Caleb's big company, but quickly his words were, we pivoted and went to a whole new business. So my belief in America is very good, and well, in the supply chain side of the things too. I think this is bigger than any government can do. I don't think there's any single government that can solve this problem. But what I do know is guys like Caleb, big or small, is going to pivot. We have going back what to Dr. Mechitov said, is we've changed we've gone to more standardized windows because oddball windows are harder to get. So we will change. But the interesting thing about us is that the vast majority of the materials that we get are not international. So the supply chain issues are driven more to us by, as you said, the labor issues being in play, and the trucking industry being so slow. So I'm kind of optimistic. I have no idea when it'll be finished because I don't know that anybody could figure that out. But I do have, I'm a capitalist at heart, and I perceive capitalism will figure out if there's a supply side needed. Capitalism will figure it out, and we will get it resolved. As long as there's demand for something, somebody will figure out how to get it to you. So don't know if it's next year or year after. I just know that we will adjust as it comes to us. We'll continue to adjust as every other business on this panel will do. We will adjust to what the market gives us. But it's much greater than just China is blamed for everything on this, and I don't mean that from a philosophical standpoint. But most of our stuff doesn't come from overseas, but it's still a problem here because of the logistics and the labor. And we're going to adjust, hopefully that our customers won't see it from the standpoint of it just, we're reducing some of the options that we have to try to get more stuff. Jeffrey said something about Gatorade. That's the same thing with us. The things that some of the things you won't notice will be changing because we have to. So I've got faith. I've got faith in entrepreneurs. I've got faith in big companies like Caleb's company. I think we'll adjust. So while this is a royal pain, if I choose between this and 2010, I'll choose this.
I think Dwight's correct. In his world, it was the fact he survived that and is flourishing now tells me a lot about how he is as a businessman, because that caused a whole other crisis. As for the global supply chain right now, I think it's going to make people step back and reassess some things. Here in Alabama, our biggest manufacturer that we manufacture the last 25 years is in the automobile industry. We almost were non-existent before 1996, and now by far we're one of the top 3 states in the country with that. And that's where you're going to see a lot of changes in the global supply chain, because right now They can't get chips out of South Korea and Japan. You know, something that's this small has, you know, have a huge impact. It's going to change the way people think about it. And I think it's still an advantage, but I think it's going to be having more than one source. So many things originate out Asia and China right now because they're cheaper, and there's just the power to build there. I think this is going to cause a change there, along with the dynamics that we could go down a rabbit hole of the emerging middle class in China that is just about as large as this country is, and their own drive for their own goods that's going to cause a need to push things back this way. It's going to mean things are going to get more expensive from where things have been, from where, you know, you go back to how Walmart really developed that China supply chain in the last 20, 30 years, and we've gotten used to cheaper, faster. Everyone's going to take a step back. I mean, when Amazon goes from 1 to 2 days of Prime to 3 to 4, there's reasons for it. There's logistics that go into it and everything else. So it's still an advantage, but it's going to be one that still remains to be seen how people adapt to this change. We'll know more about it when it's over. And to Dwight's point, we won't know it's over till it's over and we can look back and see it. It'll be one of those things, this thing's finally done.
Mr. Kennedy, do you want to kind of build off of what either of them said, and then also kind of, you touched on it a little bit earlier, but you know, kind of how we're having to handle the situation, where the issues truly lie. So how do we kind of solve that moving forward? What's going to be the key to kind of getting us back on the right track?
Yeah, heck, I wish I knew the key to get us back on the right track. I'd bottle that up and sell it for a lot of money. But yeah, I think, you know, well, a couple things is, you know, as we continue to navigate through this, I think we haven't mentioned one big player to this whole thing is really, as the media won't let us forget about it, it's going to create a sense of urgency, a sense of fear in some circumstances that drive the behaviors that we have moving forward. So I had some of our executives that asked me, like, hey, Caleb, do you see, you know, when this, you know, do you see this, you know, the sanitizer demand going down? Do you see some of this other stuff going down? I said, well, yeah, there's going to be some fall off because right now everybody's moving at you know, they're just panicking. But I said, one thing that I can count on is the media will not let us forget about this. Year in and year out, when, you know, fall hits, is going to be, is the Delta variant back, the temperature is cooling. And so I think, you know, that's a major factor that's driving a lot of the behavior we have now. I think, you know, solutions, I wish I had a solution. I think what Jeffrey said, we're doing the same thing. We're just trying to diversify our options. We manufacture a good bit of our products that we have, but guess what? We can manufacture everything, but now the main problem is getting it, you know, into the country. It's getting it, you know, out of the ports, you know, so we don't control that part of the chain, you know, but, you know, that's been one of our competitive advantages for many years, is that we manufacture over 80% of the products that we use. So we always tell our customers, hey, we're going to be able to get things to you faster than anybody else because we control the majority of our supply chain. Now I think, and these chips are creating a problem too. We've got the 7th largest fleet of any company in the country, and we don't have many trucks to spread around right now. So I was on a call not too long ago about just saving these trucks for emergency times to send out to locations that truly need them. You know, for a company like ours, to just have so many trucks rolling on the ground. So I think the solution is complex. It's multi-layered. I think one part of it is moving from a just-in-time inventory to more of an inventory that, what's the cost of not having product? I think versus the cost of holding more inventory. I think a lot of companies are going to be measuring that. Most in the last year and a half, the cost of not having it costs you a lot, because not only were you able to have an advantage over your competitors, but the price point on everything's just been going through the roof. So the margins, you know, what's interesting is that a lot of companies had record profit years this year because furloughs, layoffs were made, but the prices of everything went up. So, you know, although revenue might not have been up, the margins were significant. And so I think you're going to see more of that moving forward, diversifying, holding on to a little bit more inventory. And then, I'm just always a believer, just Dwight said this, is that whether small or big, businesses that make it through the Great Depression, the Great Recession, what we're going through right now, aren't too cocky. They acknowledge that, hey, you have to be able to pivot. You have to be able to have the core of what you always do, but also be willing to entertain other ways to take care of your customers, to grow revenues and all that. If you're too cocky, those businesses unfortunately don't last. And again, in my industry, I saw a lot of that this past year. That wasn't the good side of it. It was businesses that just kept trying to hold on and didn't want to, kind of pivot along with the tough circumstances. So I believe what Dwight said. I think this too shall pass. I love that because my dad said that to us since we've been little. So when you said that, Dwight, that definitely hit home. But I do see us getting on the other side of this. We are an innovative country by nature. We will continue to think our way out of this, and we'll continue to, adjust our strategies until we're on the backside of this.
All right. Well, I want to get some just some closing thoughts from each of you. We'll start with Dr. Mechitov, but I kind of want to pose the question of how do we prepare for something like this in the future? Should it happen again? How will this kind of change how we handle the supply chain and things of that nature moving forward? And then any closing thoughts that you have in addition to that after listening to what everybody else has said. Dr. Mechitov, we'll start with you.
First of all, I also believe to capitalism, and that's why I decided to move to this country. So my point was a bit different. It was more about that in addition to kind of forces which drive our free market development, some more wise policy and regulations on federal level also might be helpful. I mean, I am not very so arrogant to kind of put my proposals on right now, and I'm not sure that this is my role, but the point is that as we all discussed, for example, the whole infrastructure should become both more reliable, more resilient, to have some reserves, to have some kind of means to substitute one by another, and so on. For example, just today, I don't remember in what mass media, I saw an article that it's quite possible to organize another flow of transportation through Mexico towards Texas, not through LA port. And by some reasons, we haven't used it so far. Usually such type of big changes can be executed very easily by small businesses. So either larger businesses or more kind of federal help makes a lot of sense. I can only repeat what pretty much all experts say, that it will take time to adjust, definitely. And one of the reasons for my mind, because all main reasons, COVID is kind of unpredictable. We can't for sure explain why our numbers right now go down, because number of vaccinated people didn't change much in the last couple of months. On another hand, we know that we have a new resurgence of COVID in Asian countries, including China, Australia, and some other places. So COVID a bit unpredictable. Fortunately, like Spanish flu, maybe it disappear next year, but it's unpredictable. Political situation in the world is not becoming better anytime soon. The most likely increasing tension with our relationship with China, with Russia, likely will continue. And finally, we're not very optimistic about how we cope with global warming. So natural disasters may also accelerate. So all this should make us even more active in finding different solutions and make our businesses more resilient and finding new ways to make the business. And multi-sourcing is definitely one of the options, one of kind of important option. Don't rely on one supplier, kind of multiply them, including just geographically. not everything from China or South or Asia, but from South America, from other sources, and so on.
Thank you. Mr. Sandlin, do you have anything that you want to add to that, or any closing remarks that you would like to say?
Yeah, I think the change that's occurred is we've all realized that that COVID was a black swan. We thought, okay, this happens once in a lifetime, and now we have a whole gaggle of black swans coming around to us with different things that come from that. I think it's pretty simple. The supply chain issue is much bigger than I can resolve, and so I think the issue is how you resolve this in the business side is you stay customer focused. You increase your speed and the efficiency of your company, and just like Caleb did, when one opportunity goes away, look for another. So I don't think there's any resolution to this. I don't think it's fast resolution, but I think all businesses are now more aware that black swans can and will occur.
All right, thank you. Mr. Purvis, we can get your closing remarks now.
Just a couple of things. Just a reminder that it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. The media is going to be blowing it somewhat out of proportion. Biggest thing I can tell people right now is have patience with some of the things going on. Caleb touched on it, and I was hoping we'd go deeper into that, but part of the supply chain is people. And during this, you've had 41% of people change jobs or just, you had the great resignation back in August where 3% of people quit jobs. People are, that's going to be a bigger factor on how this comes out on the other side. And so it's going to change how we have to view employees and listen to what they want. It's going to be a challenge for some companies, and it goes back to reinventing sometimes the way you look at things. But for me, on a closing thought, it just goes back to having patience with everything. I hate to say it, I like my fast food every now and then. I've had to get real patient because they are working with about half the staff, and people don't really want to be there right now. And so things are going to change, and we'll see where it goes, but patience.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that domino effect of people losing their jobs, taking different jobs when they're getting back into the workforce. I think it starts in every industry, and it's impacted everything drastically. I think that's arguably the biggest reason that we're sitting here talking about this today. So I'm glad you did bring that back up. Mr. Kennedy, you brought it up to start with, but we'll get your closing remarks now and anything that you wanted to touch on again.
Yeah, I think the word for me during this whole thing is opportunity. I'm wired a little bit different in that when things are not the norm, when things are, when there's a little bit of adversity, I look at it as an opportunity. And like I told our leadership team coming into COVID, when it first hit, I said, hey, you're going to be able to gain probably 10 years worth of leadership experience in the span of 6 to 8 months. And I said, it's going to be extremely difficult. But when you look back on it, you're going to realize that you're sitting and talking to employees about the vaccine mandates. Do we have one? Don't we have one? You're going through furloughs. Just a lot of different things. You're thinking about how are we going to hit revenue lines? How are we going to overcome the supply chain thing? The supply chain thing, I think I would equate it to, water leak. And that, when you got a pipe going and you patch that water leak, all it's going to do is that pressure is going to expose another weak point. And that's what this snowball effect's kind of done for us. And I think that's why it's going to last a little bit longer, only because I think it's going to require us that when we patch one area up, it's going to say there's another hole in the infrastructure, or now, hey, there's a labor problem, there's a wage problem. And so, but I think we will pass by this, and I would just encourage everyone to take this opportunity to be one that's going to help us shape the future of supply chain. That's going to be one, if you're a leader, to be able to gain this valuable leadership experience or business experience, to be an innovative thinker. Don't look at the negative of it. I would just say take this as an opportunity to be a game changer.
Well, very optimistic message.
Great message.
Yes, thank you. I think all of y'all did a great job with different messages, and you know, examples, comparisons. It was impressive. I learned a lot specifically. So I know a lot of people watching did. And it was really neat to kind of see the different perspectives that you all bring from different backgrounds as well. So thank each of y'all for doing this today. It was very neat and very special to be a part of. So I wanted to thank y'all. I'm going to turn it over to Kirk Manser with the Shelby County Chamber to give his final thoughts for us.
Yeah, Alec, thank you for moderating today's program. We appreciate your taking time to do that. And obviously, the panelists, we very much appreciate your perspectives and your insight and your time. We appreciate all of those. And certainly, as Alex said, learned a lot. For those of you that weren't taking notes or wanted to watch this again, this will be available on the Stevens College of Business's Facebook and on the Chamber's website, shelbychamber.org. And we, again, appreciate everyone taking time to participate. Speaking of programs, I'm going to put in a plug that the Stevens College of Business and the Chamber will be conducting our annual Shelby County Business Outlook Survey over the next several weeks and months, and which will lead into our annual Business Outlook Conference on Shelby County opportunities that will be held in January. So keep your eye out for the opportunity to participate in that survey. Again, we appreciate everyone's time. Panelists, thank you again. Alec, thanks. And again, we appreciate the opportunity to collaborate with our friends at the Stevens College of Business.